going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS preview for this week's President's Cup. Going to touch on my top 6 plays for GPP contests across the pricing board. So rather than separating it into our core picks video and then the value picks video that drops on a little bit later on in the week, gonna just have one video for you guys. Only 24 players to choose from, so it'd be hard to cover half of the field with my 2 videos. It's just gonna give you these top 6 picks, which I expect to be my top most exposed plays of the week. And with the scoring changes, which we'll also touch on when we get into the projections, it's going to be a little bit harder to find some of those value picks. It's a lot more about your opportunity when you're going out there and playing this cup style format than it is the actual quality of player. The guys that are getting out there 4 or 5 times this week are going to project 20, 30% higher than the guys that are only playing 3, maybe 4 matches. So trying to identify those team favorites, the matchups, or even the pairings that are going to go out there and play almost every single slate are going to be the keys to taking down a GPP this week. Of course, you need your players to win, post some of the points that we'll talk about here in a second, but more than anything, you need to get 6 players down that are going to be playing all of the slates. So let's go ahead and get into it. A lot to consider with this unique format. Captain mode is well activated. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. We've got our projections up, but before we hop into the core picks, I just want to make sure we're on the same page and talk about some of the differences between this cup style format and what we're getting with most of these stroke play events. So first and foremost, Captain mode is activated. And for those of you out there that maybe haven't played NFL DFS, specifically the showdown side where you get the Captain mode, you see it quite often. You see it at MLB. You know, the shortened MMA slates are going to get a captain mode sort of format. And what it means is that you have one player that's going to cost 1.5x what they normally do, but is also going to score at a 1.5x rate. So that player becomes especially important in your build, as there's somebody who, from a points per dollar perspective, you're hoping goes out there and smashes, and dependent on the rest of the slate, you know, whether the top end guys are smashing, or whether you can be a little bit more balanced with your build, you have to decide where you're going to spend at the captain slot, because the elite tier guys, sure, they're going to project for more points, but if you're taking somebody who's going to cost you 15 grand, like a Xander Schauffele, for example, that's, you know, opening a lot of opportunity cost. You only have 35 grand for the rest of your lineup to fill in 5 spots, which means at that point, you'd have to live in the 7K range. Whereas if you go down here, let's say take Corey Connors, we'll talk about at the end of this video at captain, you're left with 4,100, right around like 8, maybe 8.5 grand left per spot. You know, at that sort of rate, you can dive into this 8K range. You know, if you want to take one of the super sleeper picks down there at 4 grand, you could open up a few of the top end options. It's an interesting slate. It's very similar to what you see for an NFL DFS, where you have to make some of those decisions. So that's something that is different this week compared to most. You also have the cup play format, specifically the cup play scoring system, which is not dependent on your stroke play score, whether you're birdieing, parring, making a bogey on a hole, etc. Instead, is going to be dependent on your match play results. So whether you win a hole versus an opponent, whether you end up pushing or losing the hole to the opponent. So it's dependent not only on how you're playing, but also how the opponents are playing against you. And the score for a single player is going to be the same exact as the player that they're paired with. So for example, you have Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas as a group. So even though JT is $9,600 and somebody like Jordan Spieth, who we're going to talk about a little bit later, is only $7,000, they're going to score the same if they end up being paired together for every event. Now, every player has to play Sunday singles. We're going to talk about the schedule here in a second, how many slates are available for each player. But if they end up playing all the same slates and all end up winning, scoring the same amount of points there for this Sunday showdown, which would be a little bit strange, right? That would be a little bit of an outlier performance. They'd score the same amount of points. But for days Thursday through Saturday, if they're paired together for every slate, they're going to have the same exact score. So keep that in mind. You can play both together too. So there's not going to be a role where you can't play guys like JT and Spieth together, even though they're playing together in day one, et cetera, et cetera. Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay. I think that Scotty Scheffler and Sam Burns are likely going to be a pairing. You can go ahead and stack those, and I would actually encourage you to do so. Take advantage of that correlation. On Wednesday, we're going to get the pairings early, so when we get them, we might as well react, right? Start to stack up some of our lineups. When we're taking somebody like a JT, maybe making sure that we pair him with a Jordan Spieth as many times as possible. Those sort of things are going to be especially important this week. From the schedule perspective, there are 30 total matches. On Thursday, you're going to have 5 alternate shot matches. On Friday, you're going to have 5 best ball matches. Alternate shot is when one partner will hit the tee shot, the next partner will end up hitting the approach shot, so on and so forth until they make it in the hole for all 18 holes. Somebody that tees off on the even holes, the other player will end up teeing off on the odd holes, so on and so forth for both teams. On best ball, which are playing there on Friday, that is going to be the best score on the hole counts. So both players for a group will end up playing their own ball for all 18 holes, or however the long match ends up lasting, and then your best score on every single hole is going to count. So that's best ball. The first day on Thursday is going to be the alternate shot format. On Saturday, there's going to be 4 best ball and 4 alternate shot matches. So you have 18 matches through the first 3 days there. And then on Sunday, you have 12 singles matches. So all 12 players from both squads will be going against each other in a order predetermined by the captains of each team. And then from that point, able to go out there and decide the tournament. So there's going to be 18 matches for the first 3 days. There's 12 singles matches there on Sunday for a total of 30. So that means that there's 5 opportunities to play, right? So you have the Thursday matches, the Friday matches, both slates there for the Saturday matches. So if you end up playing in all 4 of those slates, you're guaranteed to have a Sunday singles match. Those are the players that we really want to target. And when we're looking at projected points over here, it's a lot less about how good a player is, the quality, the course fit, all that sort of fun stuff, which we're looking at week to week out here in Tour, and a lot more about how much we expect them to play and who we expect them to play with. So just understand when we go through the core picks here, that's a lot more important to me than the team that they're on, that the quality of player, the fact that somebody's the number 1 course fit, that sort of thing. I don't want to say that it's irrelevant, but it's getting pretty close to it. So just understand that it's a different week than what we're used to here. And the tabs over here, like recent form, shots gained, all that sort of fun stuff, we're going to look at it a few times when we go through this preview, but it's not going to be nearly as important as it is week to week. This is a lot more about game theory, about opportunity, and about just expected win rates for the teams. So let's talk through it. Xander Schauffele is the cheaper option between Cantlay and Xander Schauffele. He's the 3rd most expensive player on the board. And all things, at least as of right now, point to Xander Schauffele and Cantlay being a super team once again. Back in the last President's Cup, the only American players to play all 5 slates were Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay. They played together. They kept them together for all 5 slates. You saw the same exact thing happen at the last Ryder Cup, and it's going to happen once again here. So, me showing you that I'm playing Xander also means that I'm playing Patrick Cantlay, and it's going to be in a very, very pricey stack. But I think getting to both players in the same lineup is more than viable. In fact, if they go out there, end up going 5-0, that sort of thing, 1-2 stack of those 2 players is going to be in the optimal. So I'm going to be getting to Xander Schauffele quite a bit, especially because he's $200 cheaper than somebody like a Patrick Cantlay. But I think playing both together makes quite a bit of sense too. When you take a look at their record, they've had an unbelievable amount of success. When you ended up separating them last year, they had their 1 loss over there in the Ryder Cup, so that quickly, was thrown into the wind. They went back to their old reliable between Cantlay and Xander, and I'd expect that to be the case for the foreseeable future, right? They won at the Zurich Classic. They clearly have a lot of fun when they're playing together. It's comfortable. You had one of them win when they were playing together in the final group. There's just no reason to split them up. So when you have a for sure thing like Xander and Cantlay, they're going to get a lot of ownership. It's a little bit early in the week. Ownership numbers are a little bit wacky at this point, but in either circumstance, I think they're chalk worth eating. Moving on to the next super group, I think is going to be Sam Burns and Scottie Scheffler. And I haven't heard a lot of talk about it yet. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have theorized that this would be a group because they're best friends. Out there, when Sam Burns ended up chipping in at the Charles Schwab Challenge, Scottie Scheffler was the first person to congratulate him, walked up to him, immediately embraced him. They're really good buddies. They have a similar game, elite off the tee play, some of the best iron players that you have on tour, and they're streaky putters. Why not put Sam Burns and Scottie Scheffler together? I've heard a few people talk about Sam Burns and Billy Horschel, and while they've played together in the past at the Zurich, I don't know if that's going to be the case. Right? You're talking about 2 players that are very similar, that are best friends. If Sam Burns ends up playing with Billy Horschel, so be it. I could see slates, though, where they end up putting Sam Burns and Scottie together, particularly if it's best ball, right? Billy Horschel in a best ball format, he's not the best birdie maker. I don't think he's the best player for that sort of match play format. maybe he drops him and it ends up being Scotty in that sort of situation. And you have Sam Burns here, who's $8,800. And given his form, based on the fact that he's won 3 times this year, Sam Burns is somebody you've got to get out there all 5 times. I think he's arguably a top 5, at least top 10 player in the world, and he's young. He's cheap here on DraftKings. I definitely see a lot of scenarios where Burns could end up being that guy that plays all 5 slates. Even if he just plays 4, goes out there, smashes for those 4 slates, that might be enough at that sort of price tag to get to the optimal. So I absolutely love Sam Burns. And Scotty Scheffler, if he's going to be low owned, he's also going to be somebody I'm trying to jam into lineups. And I know you can't play everybody up top, but based on lineup construction, there's only 24 people in the field. You kind of can. You really can. If you're building 150 lineups, take almost all of the guys up top. And I'm including JT there. We're going to talk about JT when we talk about Spieth here in a little bit. You can play all 4 of these guys up top. It's one of those weeks where, sure, you don't have to get a ton of leverage to those guys up there, but based on how you're differentiating yourself down low, maybe it's leaving salary on the table, correlating your lineup, that's a lot more important to me than ownership this week. It's a completely different ball game when there's only 24 players to choose from. There's going to be pairings with all of that correlation, and then on top of that, you have the opportunity, right? Not everyone's going to play 72 holes. You might have guys that are playing 5 slates and guys that are only playing 2, the bare minimum. So all of that matters, and all of that has to be taken into consideration. We'll talk about JT later. Let's move on to our next pick, which is going to be Colin Morikawa. Now, Morikawa, I'm not sure who his partner is going to be. So if on Wednesday it comes out that he's not playing the first slate, completely trash this, he's not going to be in my player pool, I'm assuming, though, that he's going to have a partner. If I had to guess, I think that Max Homa, based off his win, is likely to play on the first slate, and somebody like a Homa and Morikawa would be a pairing that at least makes sense to me. Both of them very similar in terms of their shots gained stats. Colin Morikawa has had a lot of success when it comes to the match play format. Over there in the Ryder Cup, had quite a bit of success in that venue. I'd expect him to get quite a bit of playing time. He's $7,800, is a whole $1,000 less than Sam Burns, who's already starting to get to that affordable price tag range. And Colin Morikawa could be your 3rd, maybe 4th man into lineups. So I like him here. I think he's going to get plenty of playing time. And if we get that confirmation on Wednesday afternoon that he's going to be on the first slate there, then fire him up, right? He's going to play at least 4 slates if that's going to be the case, if not the 5 that we're really hoping for from all 6 players in our core. Sungjae Im is one of the international players outside of a Hideki. Hideki might play all 5 because of injury, might rest him one of them and only put him out there for 4. I think that Sungjae Im, on the other hand, is almost a lock to play all 5 slates. He's the 2nd best player on the international squad. He has experience on the international team, has also been wildly successful playing on the international team. One of the best records out of anybody in this event, let alone on the international side, which has had a really rough going over the last 5 or 6 events. But Sungjae Im at $7,400. That's a price tag that I'm just going to have to get to in bunches. In fact, at least half of my lineups, because I think he's a lock, like I said, to play all 5 slates. He's somebody who plays almost every PGA Tour event to begin with. So we know that he has the stamina, the willingness to go out there and just play a ton of golf. And that's going to speak volumes to Immelman, particularly when Sungjae is also potentially the best player out there on the team, especially with Hideki's injury. So I expect him to be the best value on the slate in terms of points per dollar value. He's up there. I mean, some of the guys in the 6K range, the 4K range, just based on their price tag, might have better points per dollar projection. But just based on the points that you're locking in on the opportunity that Sungjae Im should have this week, I think he's nearly a must-play. In fact, he projects higher than Jordan Spieth, Colin Morikawa, who should play nearly every single slate for the American side, and are on the quote-unquote winning side, right? The side that's minus 700. Sungjae Im projects higher than them because he's maybe a better player than those 2 guys that he's comparing himself to, and again, is also going to be playing all 5 slates. Jordan Spieth and JT are going to be one of those known pairings that people play in bunches going into the week, but I think it's well warranted. They have a lot of success together. They've gone 5-0 in a Ryder Cup before. You're going to see them paired for every single slate. It's 2 fan favorites that, Davis Love III is just going to have to put out there for the American side because they're going to demand it. So I expect them to play all 5 slates. As long as they don't get out to some 0-2 start, I would expect them to get all of that run. And $9,600 for JT is all right, but $7,000 for Jordan Spieth. I'm going to have to jump all over that, right? It's 11.23x value, so ridiculous return on your investment. If you use them at the captain slot, it's $10,500. I wouldn't even hate using Sanjay, wouldn't hate using Colin Morikawa either at the captain slot. You're still able to make a competitive lineup with the other 4 spots that you're getting, other 5 spots that you're getting to. So I like Jordan Spieth quite a bit there, particularly because his partner is an elite level JT, and I see myself stacking that quite a bit. On Wednesday, I meant to mention this with Sanjay. Whoever his partner is, I'm likely to stack with him for all 4 for my lineups, right? Because he could very well play with them for 4 out of the 5 slates. We know Sanjay's likely to play all 5, so his partner might also be likely to play all 5, particularly if they get out to a hot start, go out there, get a win. So that is something to consider too. So Sanjay, whoever's tied to him, I would expect to also go out there and play a lot. And Corey Connors is the other player that I'm certain, and I'm certain here because Trevor Immelman told us as much, that Corey Connors is going to play every single slate. His ball striking is easy to pair with any player. He talked about that. The form, he's one of the best players, period, in this event, not just on the international side, especially from the ball striking perspective. There's no doubting the abilities of a Corey Connors. Whoever's paired with him is also a candidate to play for all 5 slates. So this isn't just about Sanjay and Corey Connors as much as it is the players that they're going to be paired with, because they're likely to be cheaper, right? You might have guys like Tom Kim who play with Sanjay. I don't know, maybe they match them up together. Maybe it's Siwoo Kim that ends up playing with somebody like Sanjay, right? Whoever it ends up being, go ahead and play that pairing together. If it's Corey Connors, maybe he puts them with Taylor Pendrith. He puts the 2 Canadians together, right? I don't know what it's going to end up being, but whoever those auxiliary players are, same thing with Colin Morikawa, right? I mentioned that he's probably going to play at least 4 of the 5 slates. Match them up together. I think that's a great way to attack this slate, especially from a correlation perspective. And Corey Connors, I know that he missed the cut, so that's probably going to lower his ownership even more. He's more than capable of turning it around, particularly if the alternate shot format pairs him up with a solid putter. He can hit approach shots to 5 to 10 feet. The other guy can drain them. It's going to be a solid day for them. So I like that quite a bit. At the bottom of the board is littered with guys that I think are going to play 3, maybe 4 slates. Like Bazainhood, I think is going to play twice. Kisner's probably only going to play twice. Cam Davis, Mito Pereira, Taylor Pendrith, these 3 are the wild cards. I could see any of these 3 playing 4 or 5 slates. So if one of them is matched up with a Corey Connors or a Sanjay, know that I'm going to be all over them. So this is a wild card range. I just can't play any of them yet. I can't put them down as a core pick without knowing who Immelman is going to pair players with. So that's my thoughts going into the week. Just know that Immelman, because we haven't seen him in a captain slot, obviously Davis Love III either, they might change things up. The American side, I just don't see it happening there. They have these tried and tested pairings that have worked in the past. Probably not going to deviate from that strategy. Because there's so many new names on the European side, don't be surprised if some of the pairings that we see for Thursday change for Friday. So just, warning right there. The American side's probably going to stay put. You're going to see a lot of the same pairings. But on the European side, because there's so many new names here, not really any pairings that are established, you could see quite a bit of volatility. All right, boys, that is all I've got for the DFS preview. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead and smash that like button, but also go ahead and let me know down below who you think the top scorer is going to be. Somebody potentially going out there scoring 5 full points, maybe it's 3.5, 4. Go ahead and let me know who you think that player is going to be. We're going to have a DFS live stream tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So in the normal time slot for us, going to go live touching on the weather, talk about the pairings. Those should be out at that point, which will be probably the most important talking point. That's going to change ownership. It's going to give us an idea of some of the optimal captains, potentially some of those X factors down low that I'll be getting to in my poll. So make sure to stop on by for that. I will put a link down below in the description of this video so you guys can go ahead and set a reminder for that stream. It's something that you won't want to miss. If you have any questions, you'll be able to throw them down in the live chat. We'll touch on strategy. We'll just have a good time overall preparing for the week. It should be a fun one. Anytime we have team golf, international pride on the line, it's going to be a fun one and an exciting one. So I'm excited for it, boys. Best of luck with all of your lineups, any outright bets that you decide to go with for this week, and let's get this cash.